Thank you very much, Professor Boukhid, for this another interesting application. We have today a really very interesting session. Since we are all scientists here, my role is not only to moderate, I'm allowing myself also to give a presentation. So I would like to present to you today to a different topic. Last 2 years, we were talking about the filling and operation of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. But today we are speaking about innovation, and innovation can really offer us solutions. So what are the solutions? As I told you, in Germany, we all the time discussing flood risk management, flood protection, what happened last summer, why this flood happened, why the warning system didn't work correct. But today, here in Egypt, we have a completely different topic. Today, I would like to speak about water shortage and water scarcity. Today, I would like to speak about different technique of desalination. And when I say here recent developments in forward osmosis desalination, I'm speaking about my team. I'm speaking about the recent development in my team. So it's not a recent development in the literature. So in order not to misunderstand me, I'm talking about what my team did over the last years. So we all know that in the Arab region, we have a very scarce region. We have 6.3% of the world's population, but we have only 1.4 of the available water resources, the fresh water resources, which means by default we have water scarcity. At the same time, we will have more and more water scarcity in the future. So in the Arab region, we have a common future. The solution that will be working for Egypt will have to be working for Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Oman, all the countries in the region, North Africa, Tunisia, Algeria. So we are all looking for solutions to serve Egypt and serve the entire region. So it's expected also that by the year 2050, 2/3 of the Arab countries could have less than 200 cubic meter per capita per year. Imagine that 250 is not really far away from us. We are very close to that. Almost 85% of the water available in the Arab region is used for irrigation. So I do believe that water for irrigation has priority for the time being, because the problem of finding new resources for irrigation is not yet solved. There are many researchers who have been working on desalination for drinking water, but not for desalination for irrigation. I know many people will start maybe shut down or shut off or not really following me when I start speaking about desalination for irrigation, not necessarily for irrigation, but desalination for crop production. This is maybe the right word. Vulnerability of food security in the region is, of course, the region is at risk in terms of food security, because you are importing more than 50% of your food from somewhere else. So any change globally will directly affect the food security in our countries, in the entire region. So coming to the point, what are the problems of desalination? The problems for me are very straightforward. Why desalination is not becoming the main source of water? Because two main problems. Energy consumption is too high, which makes the cost of desalination too high, which makes 40% of the cost of desalination is the cost of energy. And the second issue is the waste brine. And we're just closing our eyes about this topic. We don't speak about it. We just take the brine, the byproduct from the desalination, dilute it, and throw it back to the sea. Or if it's an inland desalination, sometimes you leave it on the surface, sometimes you inject it under the ground, and all of them are environmentally harmful. And it's proved in the literature that they are environmentally harmful. So there is a serious problem that's called brine. I'm not going to speak about brine today. I'm going to focus only on the energy topic. So energy consumption, as you can see from the left to the right, these are the technologies of desalination, multi-stage flash, MED, thermal type of desalination that consumes too much energy. But when you go to the reverse osmosis, and the reverse osmosis with recovery, the consumption of energy depletes. And it continues to deplete with the advanced technologies over time. But still, this amount of energy consumption is quite high. That's why also we have to link it to the CO2 emission. Because if we speak about 20 kilogram of CO2 per cubic meter of water, that's too much. And with the technology, you were able to reduce it with the RO and go below maybe 3 kilogram. But this is even still too much, CO2 emission for each 1 cubic meter of water. So why energy is needed so intensive for desalination? For the reverse osmosis, and let us follow the reverse osmosis because it's the most common technology today, and all the new desalinations are based on this technology. So why reverse osmosis consumes a lot of energy? Because you have two rooms like the one you see on the screen. One has salty water on the left side, and the other one has fresh water on the right side. And between them is the membrane that is separating the water from the salt. Naturally, by the osmotic pressure, the water will move from the right to the left, from the fresh side to the salty side. And that's exactly what you don't want. You want the water to move from the left to the right, and you cannot do it naturally without pressure, so you have to practice pressure on the left side and put the water under pressure, so you force the water to move from the left to the right. This is why desalination needs energy, because this pressure is the amount of energy you need to separate the water from the salt. And here we are speaking not about traditional and simple pump, we are speaking about high pressure pump. And that's part of the cost. So what if we try to mix the right side with another solution to increase the osmotic pressure? Chemicals, whatever type of chemicals, you increase the concentration, then the water will move naturally without any pressure from the left to the right. But you did not separate the water from the salt only, you added chemicals. Now the very big question, how we are going to separate the chemicals from the water again? This is the task of the people working in the forward osmosis. What to add to increase the osmotic pressure on the right side, and how to separate it. This is a very big question in the literature in the last couple of years. So what we add, we call it draw solution. What are the characteristics of this draw solution? The ideal draw solution has to give a high osmotic pressure. It has to be recovered, so you can get it back, you remove it from the water, and it has to be compatible to the system, it has to be safe, and it has to be economically visible. When you buy it, add it, and when you remove it. Otherwise, you are bringing another cost to the desalination. But you can see here how such a technique can deplete the energy a huge amount, so to reach a very low energy consumption in the desalination process. So this is the way how I can see here forward osmosis recovery. We used iron. We used nanoparticles, for example. Like what you see here on the screen, we add iron, magnetic nanoparticles. So حديد. يعني nanoparticles بتاعة الiron. So magnetic nanoparticles, we add it to this system, and then we add a magnetic field to collect these magnetic particles again. With this, you can collect all the magnetic particles, and then you have free water out of this. There are two publications on this topic that were published recently, and I will give you the list of publications later on. So for the forward osmosis, this is the system how it will look like later on. You have saline water, you have the forward osmosis membrane, and then you have the brine on the other side. From here, you have a tank with water mixed with magnetic nanoparticles. The magnetic nanoparticles will go through, the water will move from the salty side to the fresh side. Then you have diluted magnetic particles solutions. With the magnetic field, you can separate the magnetic, the particles from the water, and then you have the fresh water coming out of the system. This is one approach that we are working on reaching a pilot scale to this one. The other one, this is the infrastructure we are using, and all of these are established here at the American University in Cairo. in the New Cairo area. This is the experiment we did. This is the magnetic nanoparticles, and this is the magnetic field. You see on the right side the magnetic field and how the magnetic field was really able to attract and take all the magnetic particles, and you have fresh water, as you can see here on the right side. And this is also the images of the magnetic particles, but we added one step to that. We said, how can we increase the osmotic pressure more if you are dealing with brackish water, for example, with 10,000 ppm, or you are dealing with seawater. So you need a very high osmotic pressure. That's why these nanoparticles, we had to coat them. We coated them with pectin. Pectin حاجة لزجة كده بتتحط في المربى. So we had to coat the magnetic particles with pectin in order to increase the osmotic pressure so you can work with water with higher salinity level. And these are the results. Of course, I'm not going to go through all of this. And here you can see how we were able here with this approach to drop the energy more and more. But there is another approach. If I don't want to separate, I just want to use the osmotic pressure, separate the water from the salt, and that's it. I don't want to this story of magnetic pressure, etc., especially if I'm not thinking about drinking water. If I think about irrigation, then the philosophy is completely different, because you can think of adding fertilizers to the water. And once you increase the osmotic pressure, then you absorb the water, you dilute your draw solution, and then you use it directly for fertigation. So you don't have to separate it. So this is the other approach when we call it forward osmosis without recovery. Because the water I produce already water for fertigation purpose and not for drinking purpose. And that's why I was interested from the very beginning in irrigation use of water for agriculture. So this is the forward osmosis approach. This is the same system, but here the approach is different. I'm using concentrated fertilizer solution here to separate the water from the salt, but at the end I have diluted fertilizer solution directly used for fertigation. I have to finish as well because I have to skip some slides here. And this is exactly what we are doing now. So I separated the water from the salt. I used diluted fertilizer, but I can connect this system not to an irrigation system in the delta, because people criticize us, then they see the delta and how 1,000 cubic meter you use for the delta. That's not our target. Our target is to use the fertigated water for hydroponics, for any other closed loop system that can produce more with less. This is the analysis of the flux. I'm not going to go through them, but this system is now connected in our experiment to hydroponic system to separate water from the salt using fertilizers and use the system directly connected to produce vegetables from an hydroponic system. I stop here, and these are the publications only on the energy part of the desalination. Please feel free to contact me if you have any further questions. Thank you very much for your attention. We have Dr. Waleed Effat. Dr. Waleed Effat is a technical director of ESRI in the United States, and I think he is connected to us also from the United States. Dr. Waleed Effat is currently serving as a technical director, GIS consultant at ESRI, responsible for defining and executing GIS strategies for target clients. Dr. Waleed's profession, he has 24 years plus of experience in concrete on specifically on GIS applications and services, creation of GIS database, implementation of analytical models, and GIS-based systems. Before he joined ESRI and worked in different tasks and in different regions, including our MENA region. He has a PhD in GIS and remote sensing, focusing on the use of different applications and data processing. He is also has a certificate of geographical intelligence from Penn State University. He has Doctor of Philosophy in Geographic Information Systems and Remote Sensing. He has also a Master of Science in Business Administration. And it's my pleasure to invite him to take the floor from the US. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hani. Thank you for having me here in the Cairo Water Week. It's a great opportunity for me to present some of the recent technologies that we are developing in ESRI. Actually, I'm talking from Dubai, not from the States. We are here, the regional office of in ESRI Middle East, responsible for Africa, Middle East, and West Asia. So allow me to share my screen, please. So we are talking today about a service-based approach for accessing and using satellite imagery data. Dr. Hisham was presenting some great stuff about getting information, extracting information from satellite imagery. So how we can access those satellite imagery in an innovative way. I mean, the service approach, it's simply a way to access and analyze the free satellite data imagery without downloading it. So here's the agenda of the presentation. First, we will talk briefly about the satellite imagery and its use. Then the motivation that made ESRI to adopt the image service approach. We will talk also a little bit about how we are manage the big amount of imagery data in ESRI. Then we talk about the service approach itself. And finally, if we have time, I will show a live demo, a very brief live demo on how to access free imagery data. So satellite imagery has now become an essential tool for monitoring various phenomena across the globe. And this is simply because of the high acquisition frequency and the accuracy of this data, of the satellite data. It has been widely used in many fields like defense, environmental, crisis management, census, but specifically for hydrology, it has been used in various areas, especially in watershed management field, reservoirs capacity analysis. And of course, applying remote sensing algorithm on satellite data helps provide observations of changes in hydrological variables over both time and space. So what makes ESRI to develop and adapt a new way to manage, visualize, and analyze imagery? The good thing that we have a lot of free imagery data available on the internet. However, we might need some time, decent time downloading those imagery and also applying some image processing and remote sensing functions on the downloaded imagery. This definitely would result in having multiple copies of the original data, the downloaded data, and accordingly, we might need more space to store the new drive data. So ESRI have tackled those challenges by adapting the idea of image services, consumption, and delivery. But let's focus a little bit on image services. So just before talking about image service, let's start from the standard workflow we usually do when working with free satellite imagery data. I will take Sentinel-2 satellite as an example. So Sentinel-2 is an optical satellite. It's not a SAR satellite, as Dr. Hisham was mentioned. It's optical satellite. So it's operated by the European Space Agency. There are two satellites, Sentinel-2A and Sentinel-2B. Sentinel-2 satellites take images of the same place on every 5 days. The image width is around 290 kilometers. It has 13 bands with a ground resolution of 10 meters for blue, red, and green and near-infrared bands. So typically the standard workflow is to log into either Earth Explorer or Copernicus, which is portal that the Sentinel data, Sentinel-2 data, and Sentinel-1, of course, and Sentinel-3 are available to download. But we need to log them first, maybe define some parameters like acquisition date of the image, cloud cover, and of course, area of interest. Then download the data. Sometimes it needs a good internet connection, and the average file size of just one image is around 800 megabytes. And as you can see, it comes like in single bands. It doesn't come in just one raster file or one imagery file. It comes in single bands. So the user has to combine all of these images, these bands, into one single file to be able to deal with the image. Then after combining all the image bands, he has to do some or perform some image processing functions on the downloaded imagery. So in each process of the image processing and remote sensing function, while applying remote sensing function, we have like new files reduced. So to get a final product, to get a final information product, we have like we need like from 4 to 5 copies of the original images. So it ends up with a minimum of like 4 gigabytes of imagery to get just one information product, like for example, a classified imagery. So we need a better way to manage this type of workflows. That's because, again, it took a lot of time. It needs like a good bandwidth and infrastructure. So ESRI developed something called Mosaic dataset. This is our imagery information model. It is the cornerstone of managing extremely large imagery archives within ESRI platform. It's very like simple idea. It's essentially a standard container, like table, used to hold all the key metadata of each image, like date of acquisition, cloud cover. So it can be quickly queried for both data retrieval or even doing processing on the fly, something we call on the fly processing. I'll describe it in a minute. So Mosaic data, that's the good thing about Mosaic data sets. It works without any modification to the original source data. This means that thousands of images can be rapidly added to the archive and immediately be available for visualization. So I create a table and put my imagery file in just like a system folder, and the Mosaic dataset access this system folder. It enables something we call on-the-fly processing, which means applying the analytics only within the displayed extent on the screen. And this can speed up the processing time big time. So once we pan or zoom to other areas in the image, the processing again will be applied on the new extent. It also allows something called dynamic mosaicing, which means I can rearrange the overlapped images the way I want. Could be I arrange them sort them by date, by cloud cover, or by any other variables that are stored in the metadata of the image. We see, we saw Dr. Hisham Al-Askari like put or overlaid or superimposed a lot of imagery on the top of each other. So how we can arrange this to facilitate better analytics. Another key capability of the Mosaic dataset is the ability to add raster processing function as a part of imagery archive. It's not about the imagery, the imagery files, it's also attaching some function to the imagery. For example, here, this is like a digital elevation model of a certain area. So right now I'm driving other information product from the digital elevation model, like a hill shade, like slope, like aspect, without creating a new data. It's just in the memory. It's just virtual data. So I use the same disk space, however, driving or producing or developing other products. So what about image service itself? Simply, we need to share those big archive of imagery, like Landsat imagery or Sentinel-2 imagery. We need to share those imagery and let users to be able to use the imagery and analyze it without the need of downloading the real imagery data. So the good thing, image services provide full access to all original pixels value and spectral bands, which means that I can work with the image service the same way I'm working with the physical images itself. It's the same. It's just like something called we call web services that can be consumed via web browser or even desktop software. It's simply a web address, as you can see here, just web address that can be accessed, as I told you, by browser or even desktop, any GIS desktop packages. So what about free data? We have like advantage right now that Amazon Web Services is having a dedicated bucket. Bucket is like a folder, which can be seen like simple folder that contains all the Landsat data and Sentinel data. It contains all Landsat data since 1971 till October 2021. So we have a big archive of data. Also, it contains Sentinel-2 as well. But in order to get those data from the bucket, we need to use some coding, some programming, like using Python, for example. So ESRI developed a way to automatically access the AWS Amazon Web Service bucket and create a Mosaic dataset in Amazon Web Service as well, and reference those images to the Mosaic dataset and publish the Mosaic dataset here into our servers, our GIS servers called image server, and avail those services for users, for public users, to start working with it and analyze it. So the advantage of using image service, we don't need to download any data. We can simply share the imagery data with anyone with certain permissions. We can apply analytics on the imagery service. Of course, it can provide also a better data security. And just allow me maybe to show you a live demo. Here we have a web application, a simple web application that retrieving all the Sentinel data, the Landsat data, starting from like here, like 1976 till 19th of October 21. So I have a big archive. I can maybe navigate to any place in Egypt, like Kenya, for example. So it brings all the satellite data for Kenya. So I can do any band combination. Like I need to see those imagery in natural terrain instead of vegetation. And also I need to retrieve. I have this image is for October 2021, 21 of October. I might see the one in 2014, so I can see it. Here is it, the one. Also, I can compare between two images. I might need to compare between this one, which is acquired at 2014. And I start doing like visual change detection.
Dr. Waleed.
Yes. Sorry.
Maybe if you can conclude, because I think we are running out of time.
Yeah. Sure. What I was aiming to show is I have like full access to a big imagery archive, like Landsat or Sentinel data without downloading the images, and I have a full capability to do that, different analytics on the imagery. Like in a very simple way, I can do it via web browser, via desktop applications, in a very straightforward way. So thank you for your time, doctor. This is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Waleed, for the very interesting presentation. We all understand that you wanted to show more, and but hopefully.
No worries, doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, to be on time and also to take some Q&A here, and to allow our panelists to reply to you. So please, if you have any question, raise your hand, introduce yourself, your name, your function, institution, only in one sentence, and then your question to the point. And also tell us to whom your question should be.
I'm Amira Saeed. I'm an Egyptian journalist at the Egyptian Gazette newspaper. So my question is to Dr. Hisham. Dr. Hisham, I'd like to ask you about the validation process. We know sometimes the satellite images, there is an error rate or something like that. So could you tell us more details about the validation process? My second question is about geology. Dr. Hisham, you mentioned that you already in your study, you looked into geology. Do you think that we need a detailed geological study on the ground to reach a more comprehensive study? And my last question is about the assessment process. You mentioned, Dr. Hisham, that there has been like certain obstacles during this, the evaluation of this study. Were these obstacles were on a scientific basis or somehow they were politically motivated? Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for the questions. I'm going to be quite fast. So in terms of validation, since we don't have any kind of ground observation, so there is no way for us to be looking into what's available on the ground. That's why we did the other analysis, which is the water edge analysis, in order to validate some of the INSAR outputs. But we will be very happy to have any kind of ground observations or ground data in order to assess our analysis. Regarding the second question, which was if you can just remind me very fast again, the second point, very fast. Yeah. Like you are talking about the review process of the research itself. Basically, in the research process, you go into a peer review process. So during the time of our peer review, we have been reviewed by almost half a dozen reviewers, and it has been quite hectic, because every time we reply to the reviewers, it will come back again with different kind of questions, and this is not very typical in any kind of review process. So basically, when you have a process and you have a transparent process, you get some questions, you address them, and that's it. You don't open a new panel of discussions. So basically, it has been on and off this way until we prevailed and until our publication, our paper got published. I hope I addressed your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hisham. If you would like to ask in Arabic.
أنا أحمد مسعد، صحفي بالأهرام الزراعي وموقع مصراوي. عندي بس سؤالين. سؤال دكتور هشام بخيت لما كان بيكلمنا عن حساب النماذج، وكلمنا عن ان هو احيانا بيستعين بنماذج اقليميه ونماذج محليه، وان برضو النماذج دي بيكون فيها نسبه اخطاء، وحتى يمكن ذكر فيها مشروع المغرب. فعايزين بس نعرف ايه الحاجات اللي ممكن تخلي النماذج دي ما يعتدش بيها ويتلغي مشروع من اجل حساب هذه النماذج. ده السؤال الاول. السؤال الثاني للدكتور هشام العسكري، الرصد اللي كان في الدراسه المتعلق بميول احد الجوانب في السد، هل العمليه دي تم رصدها على فترات متقطعه ولا بشكل مستمر؟ شكرا.
اوكي، شكرا جزيلا على السؤال. الواقع ان انت حضرتك علشان تعمل نمذجه انت بتبسط الحقيقه، مهما بلغت الانفورميشن اللي حضرتك بتجمعها انت كده ما بتوصلش للحقيقه الكامله. انت بتجيب حسب البيانات المتاحه حضرتك بتدخلها وتبدا تتوقع النتيجه. علشان كده قلت لحضرتك ان النمذجه هي عمليه دايناميك، بتعمل كاليبريشن معايره وفاليديشن وترجع تعمل مونيتور وتبص على القصه دي تاني. فبناء على المعلومات اللي عندك ممكن يبقى عندك تصور معين وتبدا تشتغل عليه. الداتا الجديده اللي تعملها بناء على تصورك تقول ان النتائج مش ماشيه في الاتجاه الصح، لازم تعيد تصورك تاني. علشان كده بقول لحضرتك هي عمليه مستمره بنصلح نفسنا فيها واحده ورا واحده. اما حته المحليه والعالميه، هي مش عالميه، هي ريجونال، يعني على سكيل كبير، ولوكال على سكيل صغير. كل ده عشان يخدم الغرض الرئيسي اللي هو الاستدامه. عشان تحقق الاستدامه في 3 حاجات رئيسيه لازم تبص عليها، اللي هي الكفاءه والكواليتي بتاعه الميه، النوعيه والريزيلينس بتاعه الميه. فانت بتبص على الحاجات دي كلها مع بعض وبتقيم نفسك، وعشان كده العمليه هي iterative process يعني. شكرا.
ردا على سؤال حضرتك، بالنسبه للازاحات اللي احنا شفناها، الازاحات كانت بتختلف من عام لعام. علشان كده حضرتك لو تفتكر بعض القطاعات اللي احنا كنا بنوريها في السنوات المختلفه كانت بتبين، عايز اقول ترند، احيانا ممكن يكون بوزيتيف او نيجاتيف، ولكن عشان كده احنا عملنا الريزلتنت ديسبيسمنت، كان في اللي هو المجمع، فكان في تغيرات، والتغيرات ممكن تكون سالبه او موجبه على مدار السنوات المختلفه. ولكن زي ما احنا قلنا احنا عندنا دراسه على حوالي 6 سنوات، بمعنى يعني من 2016 لغايه 2021، بمعنى ان احنا جمعنا كل الصور اللي كانت موجوده من اول 2016 لغايه 2021 وعملنا الاناليسيس بتاعتنا ديت. فاحنا عندنا ريكورد للسنوات ديت اللي احنا رصدناها. كل 12 يوم عندك صوره وبتاخد الصور ديت وبتبتدي تعمل عمليه التحليل. فكان يعني الرصد كان مستمر. كون بقى عندك ازاحات رأسية يعني uplifting او subsidence، ده كان بيختلف من عام لعام.
شكرا دكتور هشام. اتفضل حضرتك.
My name is Bassem Gorgi from infrastructure engineer in Heidelberg, Germany, and previously water resource engineer in Ministry of Water Resource and Irrigation and Dar Handasa. Yeah, my question is to Dr. Hisham Askari, two questions. You presented the displacement in the main dam, but the unit was not clear. Was it in millimeter or centimeter or meter? It was in 0.47 or something?
Centimeters.
Centimeter, okay. Second question, in the Sadr Dam, you mentioned that there was a displacement even there is no water pressure, but did you relate this time series measurement or monitoring, I think from 2016 till 2021, did you relate this with the progress of the dam construction and the increase of the height and the pressure coming from the earth pressure itself for the dam body or not?
So you are referring to the structure itself, like, in terms of construction?
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, like, you are recording something, like, you are observing over the course of time. You are observing that structure over the course of time. Like, it won't matter, like, what is happening in terms of the construction, but, like, I assume, like, it has been under construction during all these periods.
I think it was under construction, but did you relate that? Was it on the same level? The top of the dam was on the same level, or was already progressing in the construction during this time series measurement?
No, it's on the top of the dam.
Okay, and it was the same level, no increase in the level.
Again, like, you are doing this technique, is called the DNSAR. So basically, like, you are having a specific reference based on the images that you are taking over that specific time. So basically, you are looking into, like, one image, like, and compare it with the following, and that one with the following, and so on and so forth. There is another technique that we are conducting right now, which might be addressing the question in a better way, which would be the PSI, which is the persistent SAR technology. And this one, you would have one master image and you have a lot of slave images, and this will take into account like, maybe an image in the middle of the time series, and then it's going to be looking into before and after. So currently what we did was a differential DNSAR on the body of the structure itself.
Okay. A last question for Dr. Hani, please. It was a very good idea to introduce the fertilizer material to the water, but did you measure how much energy saving using this method in the desalination process?
I showed on the screen the graph. Theoretically, it's a zero energy. Theoretically.
Zero energy.
Zero energy, because it's an osmotic pressure issue. So the energy is the difference in the osmotic pressure.
Yeah.
It's not an external energy.
I thought you need some secondary energy.
The only external energy is the pump that's going to circulate the water next to each other, so the shear force can assure the water movement from one side to the other.
Yeah, this is
so
great.
Thank you very much. And maybe we move to Ali and Monsieur. You talked about digitalization, and you didn't talk about any feedback from the customers. How did you communicate with the customers in order to get their feedback on the service you are offering?
But first you have to get a very good information system with the customer. I mean, this is the basic. And then with the telemetry, the meter is the way to communicate with the customers, between the company and the customers. Through the meter, through the telemetry gives you the opportunity as a user to get all the information by internet on your computer or in your iPhone, in your phone. So you get alarm about your consumption. For example, if it's not normal consumption, so you can get an alarm. And then the consumer has the possibility to act as a consumer and to manage his consumption. And so I think this is worth it in the urban use, but it's more important in the irrigation use. And by the way, now we see different approach more and more with the agricultural sector to get this information of the consumption they have, and with the previous consumption they should have. So like this, they can act directly with that. And the information during the COVID, for example, it was very important to maintain this communication with the consumer, well, through the bill, effectively, but not only through the bill, because the bill is indispensable to the service, but also to get the quality of water, to have information about the risk they have with the COVID through water or not, etc. and so on.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe to Jordi, you mentioned a very interesting system. Do you see any future collaboration here in Egypt? Because I saw some similarity between the system you are operating and the Egyptian system in one way or the other, at least in the way water is distributed.
Yeah, for sure. Hello. Yeah, for sure. I can see a big collaboration here in Egypt. Egypt has a huge amount of kilometers of canals, is managing a lot of water through their open canal systems. So I can see how Egypt can benefit, especially nowadays where the water shortage, the water scarcity is on the table every day. We shall put technology to manage better the systems. So I can see, as I can see in other countries where we're working, how this technology can be good for the country and for the farmers, for the irrigation sector.
Okay, Dr. Mustafa, go ahead. And then next one here in the front.
Dr. Mustafa Musa, Director of Science Technology Valley.
مفيش رئيس للجلسة يا ابني ولا ايه؟
First of all, I'd like to thank all the professors in these sessions for these interesting, nice presentations. I'd like to direct my question to Dr. Hisham Bekhit regarding this nice model and decision support system, especially for the groundwater. I think that is really touch a very sensitive issue for Egypt, especially for the new generation of the reclaimed land. Especially you are touching the part of the, what we call it, brackish water and the future developments for agriculture, a new era of agriculture developments in Egypt. Based on the experience that you gain from Moghra and especially with that critical model of these two types, how you really look for this type of the perspective of the new developed land in Egypt, especially depending on the groundwater, from that perspective?
Thank you so much, Dr. Mustafa, for the question. Actually, it's very important questions. I believe that the core of the whole what we are doing is the main interest of sustainability. So we are trying with the ministry to look to the things in a different way. As you all know, that most of the groundwater that exists in Egypt is fossil water. It's non-renewable. So by definition, there is no sustainable for an unsustainable source or fossil source. So we are trying to capture the different aspect of sustainability and trying to look to the future generation as well. It's not you are using them today and lose the future. So we are looking for the future. We are looking to the rate of depletion. We are trying to set the limit of rate of depletion that will not affect your economic development in the future. We are looking, as we said, for the water quality and the migration of the solid transport with the more excessive way. We are looking for the economics of the value. We are looking for what is the economic value of the produced water and what's the best use of this water. We are in the heart as well, the social aspects, how many job opportunity that's produced. That's why I'm saying it's not only the modeling is just the starting point. We are feeding all these outputs into one big decision support system that's include all this aspect. The good things we are in the ministry, they are looking on the holistic approach. It's not just not asking about what's the amount of water, they are looking on the different aspects. So this is why the things that the ministry are doing, considering all these kind of aspects, and in some type of these cases, they change some decisions, they increase some decisions based on the feedbacks of this. And again, this is not only one process. After you take a decision, you monitor your decision, and you may revisit your decision again. As I said, it is an iterative process. It is not one go. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hisham. I see Dr. Waleed is still with us online. Dr. Waleed, do you want to contribute to this discussion by any comment?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hani. Yeah, I think the most important thing to maybe for Dr. Hisham and for all the participants is to having like authoritative data, authoritative satellite data. I think one of the attendees asked about the accuracy of the data. So availing a very simple and straightforward platform to access the satellite data without any difficulty or challenging infrastructure, it's very vital and very important to all the researchers and all the hydrological and engineers. So the good thing, as I mentioned, is we have a lot of free data that can bring a lot of insights, extract information from it. So I'm really appreciating that you give me the opportunity to present the new idea of how the image service and how image service can facilitate accessing the data in a very straightforward and seamless way. Thank you, Dr. Hani.
Thank you very much, Dr. Waleed. I think we have one female here. You did. Oh, go ahead, please. Sorry. Last two questions, one in the front and one for the doctor.
Zakaria Hamimi from Banha University, Tectonics and Structural Geology. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the keynote speakers for these interesting talks, which added much more contribution to our knowledge on the water resources. And my question to Professor Hisham Al-Askari, is it possible to integrate the INSAR data with other topics or approaches like the interferometry or the earthquake seismology to get much more data about the vertical movement? I fully agree with you that the East African rift system is a tectonically active sector, and we have to look for this region through the integration between the INSAR data or remote sensing data and other branches in geosciences. Thank you for your interesting talk.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, indeed. Like, the INSAR technology does have a lot of applications. We are just touching on one of those. Like, it does have a lot of applications in vegetation, in agriculture, in mineralogy. So basically, like, we can use a lot of these characteristics in order to address some of the key issues for development. In terms of accuracy for the vertical displacement, there are new, future missions, and there are current other missions which are not for free, like it's more commercial, where it can give you, even higher accuracy in the order of millimeters or so. So and also based on what kind of band, the L band, the X band. So those kind of bands also contribute to the accuracy of the data. So yeah, there are a lot of potential future applications as well that we are also looking into.
I'm Rawan Ahmed. I'm studying renewable energy engineering at the Well City. We have two questions, one from me and one from my colleague. My question is to Mr. Jordi. You mentioned that the system works by solar panels and also function 24 hours a day. Can I know how you get the energy at the night if there is an energy storage system?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
You mentioned that the system works 24 hours a day and is powered by solar panels. Can I know you have solar energy storage?
Yep. Okay. So every single gate, it has a solar panel and it has a battery inside the gate. So even in the gate, there is all the sensoring and all the flow measurements. So every gate is completely independent from all the others, and that's how the system works. And yes, it works 24 hours a day because basically it's an automatic system that, as my friend told before about the need of the modelings, so our systems are modeling all the water and all the water demands from all the users, and basically is transporting all the water from catchment to crop thanks to these water demand systems.
So there is an energy storage system? There is a battery to charge the system at the night?
Exactly. So we have solar panels and batteries inside the gate.
Thank you. Another question.
And the battery allows to work 24 hours, the gates.
Thank you very much for this discussion. Thank you very much for the speakers. Mr. Alan, he speaking to us about digitalization and detecting leakage and using applications of digital systems in many applications, actually communication, governance, etc. Jordi, very interesting system. Thank you very much. Managing canal system, that's really very applicable in the case of Egypt as well. And Professor Hisham Bekhit for the great presentation and the modeling approach, and definitely Professor Hisham Al-Askari for the very interesting application, and I think this will benefit the people working in the area very much, as well as Dr. Waleed online. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for the audience for your patience and your questions as well, and enjoy the break, and we will lock the door. We keep the speakers here. If you want to ask them, please feel free. We are all here. We will be discussing with you, but I don't want to interrupt the program because today is the closing and we cannot shift one session to the other. So please understand the situation, and we are waiting for any discussion here on bilateral basis. Thank you very much. Enjoy the break.
Thank you.